What if I told you SpaceX just managed to launch 2 Falcon 9 rockets from opposite sides of the United States in less time than many people spend watching a movie? On Saturday night, the company launched one mission for Globalstar from Florida, then another for the U.S. Space Force from California just 38.5 minutes later. And that astonishing turnaround isn't just about speed. It shows how dramatically the business of launching rockets is changing. The first Falcon 9 lifted off from Cape Canaveral Space Force Station at 9:12 p.m. Eastern Time, carrying 8 Globalstar satellites into orbit. The booster, known as B-1090, was flying for the 14th time, and about 8 minutes after launch, it came back down and landed at Landing Zone 40, right near the Florida launch site. That mission was already a major milestone, but while its upper stage was still traveling toward orbit, SpaceX was preparing another Falcon 9 thousands of miles away. At Vandenberg Space Force Base in California, the countdown continued for USSF-366, a classified mission for the United States Space Force. Just 38.5 minutes after the Florida liftoff, the second Falcon 9 roared into the sky. The payload remains classified, so the public doesn't know exactly what was placed into orbit, but the Space Force said the mission was assigned under a previously awarded National Security Space Launch Phase 3 Lane 1 task order. In other words, this wasn't simply another commercial satellite launch. It was part of America's national security space infrastructure. And here's where the story gets even more impressive. The second rocket's booster, B-1088, didn't just launch and disappear. It returned for another successful recovery, landing on SpaceX's drone ship Of Course I Still Love You in the Pacific Ocean. According to the launch report, that recovery marked the 650th Falcon booster landing. So in one evening, SpaceX demonstrated rapid launch operations, reusable rockets, and another successful booster recovery across 2 separate coasts. Think about what that means. Launching a rocket used to be treated like an extraordinary event that could require months or even years of preparation, with the vehicle itself essentially considered disposable. SpaceX's Falcon 9 has turned that model upside down by making booster recovery and reuse part of routine operations. And now the bigger challenge isn't simply proving that a rocket can fly again. It's figuring out how quickly the entire launch system can support the next mission. That matters because demand for space is exploding. Governments want more national security satellites. Companies want larger communications networks. And new competitors are racing to build satellite constellations that can connect phones and other devices directly from space. The Globalstar mission is a perfect example of that bigger trend. Globalstar is currently in the middle of a proposed acquisition by Amazon, and that deal could dramatically change the satellite communications landscape. Amazon has said Globalstar's satellites, spectrum, and operational expertise would help its Amazon Leo network expand into direct-to-device services, potentially allowing connectivity in places where traditional cellular networks don't reach. The transaction is expected to close in 2027, assuming the required conditions and regulatory approvals are satisfied. That's why replenishing Globalstar's satellite constellation matters beyond this single launch. These 8 spacecraft aren't just pieces of hardware floating above Earth. They're part of an infrastructure race involving Amazon, SpaceX, AST SpaceMobile, and other companies trying to solve one enormous problem. How do you keep people connected when there's no cell tower nearby? Recent plans from Amazon call for thousands of satellites and direct-to-device services, putting even more pressure on companies already competing in this market. And there's another detail worth watching. Globalstar has said its merger with Amazon is still pending, and the company has stopped providing future earnings guidance and holding additional earnings calls while the transaction moves forward. The deal itself includes regulatory approvals and other closing conditions, so the final outcome isn't guaranteed. That means the satellites launched Saturday are arriving at a company whose future ownership and role in the satellite industry could look very different by the time this constellation is fully transformed. Meanwhile, SpaceX is showing exactly why launch capacity has become such a powerful advantage. 2 rockets, 2 customers, 2 coasts, and less than 40 minutes between liftoffs. The real story isn't simply that SpaceX launched 2 Falcon 9s in record time. It's that launches like this are beginning to look less like once-in-a-generation events and more like a rapidly expanding transportation network for the space economy. And if that pace continues, the next big question won't be whether America can launch enough satellites. It may be whether the rest of the space industry can keep up with how fast SpaceX is putting them there. For Globalstar, the mission strengthens a constellation at a critical moment. For the U.S. Space Force, it adds another classified capability to orbit. And for SpaceX, it's another demonstration that reusable rockets can turn access to space into something faster, more frequent, and increasingly routine. If you found this update helpful, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Prime Wire, and turn on notifications so you never miss the latest news. Thanks for watching.